Hi Stampers, this is Karen Phillip. I'm a Stampin Up Demonstrator and I'm pleased to show you how to make this really cool card. It's a pop and twist card. You open it up and it says hugs inside. I've also made a couple other versions of this. This is the landscape mode. This is the portrait mode, and when I made this I used some retired dies. This could be a good masculine card. I made another one. This was one that I actually sent to someone for a sympathy card. And again, it hugs inside. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is color all of these pieces. But let me show you the stamp set that I used. Actually, it's a bundle. So this bundle is Sending Hugs. It has the dies and it has the stamp set. And at first I really wasn't that excited about this set, but I did want to use the hugs. And these letters are just cut out. They cut out all the letters. But it also has another thing with the flowers, a die with the flowers, and then it cuts out the hugs as well. It has some other little dies that go with it. And this is the stamp set. What I liked about this after I got it was the fact that you could put something over this hugs part, because that's the part I wasn't that crazy about. It seemed kind of busy, but this still works for a really nice background. So the first thing I did was stamp this and colored it. I already colored it, but I did use these blends, and I got the color palette from the designer paper that is, oh, I don't remember what it's called. Hand penned, I believe. I believe it's hand penned. And on the inside of the card, I'm using little pieces of it, and that's how I got my palette. So this is Misty Moonlight, Pale Papaya, Soft Succulent, and Polished Pink. You could use blends or you could use the markers. Both work well. So I already colored it. You don't need to color the hugs part because that will be it will be covered up. So after this is colored, then we are going to cut it into pieces. And this is a 4 and, let's see, it's 4.5 inches wide, and it is 3 and, oh, that's odd. It's 3 and 5/8 wide. I'm surprised it's not 3.5, but that's what it is. Okay, so now we will cut it in 1.5 or 1 1/8 inch pieces. So each piece will be 1 1/8. And I did copy this idea from someone, and that excited me about the stamp set as well, but I don't remember who it was at this point. So I apologize if I'm not giving credit to anybody for that matter. So we have our pieces, and then we have our card base. There's all my pieces for the kit. Okay, so we have the card base, which is the 8.5 by 5.5, scored in the middle and folded. And we're doing this landscape. So I'm taking the pieces and they go in about 1/4 inch. And what I found the easiest was by attaching the end pieces and then the center. So let's do that. I'm not even going to try my other kind of adhesive just because I've not had success with it. But not everybody can say that. Some people have had perfect success with it. Alright, so I'm putting the first and the last piece on, and now I can just line these up and then attach them. So there's just about 1/8 of an inch in between. And then you have a nice little accent to go with it. So it's not just a stamped image. Okay, so after we have that, next I will be putting on a doily, one of the square doilies. And this can be done several ways. You could put the doily on just flat, or you could put it on a diagonal. But what I did is just cut it in half and put it on the center. Now the reason why I'm cutting it in half, I didn't want it covering all of my flowers up here because it just kind of, you lose all your flowers. So I just moved it down, and that's why I cut it in half. I put the adhesive right on the card and centered it in. So when you cut it in half, it covers up, I'd say 3/4 of the hugs part of it. Maybe a little more here. And then you bring this one down, and the same thing, if it's even, then you really won't be able to see the hugs at all, because it's this much of an overlap, about 1 inch overlap. The next thing we're going to do is stamp the sentiment. The sentiment comes from Positive Thoughts, and it says sending positive thoughts and feel good wishes. It's a nice set. It could be sympathy, it could be just a nice sentiment, just like you're thinking of somebody, but it fit the square nicely. So I'll just stamp that. I'm stamping this in Memento, black Memento ink. Next we will attach it. We will attach it to the card. But before we do that, I want to put a piece of pale papaya ribbon on the back. So we're doing that on the right side back. I'm just putting a little adhesive on the back of it, it's on the right side, folding it in half on an angle and just sticking it down. And to keep it secure, I'm using some dimensionals. I'm using the large dimensionals and just putting the dimensional right over it, and just putting a couple more on there. Don't have to go crazy. And now we'll attach it to the card. Okay. And just set that on the front. You could add some jewels if you'd like. On my one sample I did add some genial gems right on the white part. So that's a possibility. Now for the fun part on the inside, the whole mechanism part. So I first have 2 pieces of 3 3/4 by 5, and they're going on the top and bottom. But to decorate it a little bit, I'm using the hand-penned designer paper, and again, that's where I got my colors from. Just put that on. One on the bottom and one on the top. You don't have to put anything on the top, but it just kind of brings the card together, I think. Okay, and we'll just put that inside the card. And the bottom one. Alright, so set that aside for the moment. Now for club members, you would have received the kit, and in the kit you would have received your little sample piece, and I'm showing everybody this just so you can get an idea how the mechanism is supposed to work. This is just a small little piece, and it would be scored for club members. So again, this is pretty much just showing how the mechanism works, and when you have it in your card, I brought it out. You'll see how it goes when we have it in the card. So this is just scored in half lengthwise, and there are two little marks on the top and on the bottom. So you're going to fold it in half lengthwise, and from these marks it's scored from one point to the other point and on the other side as well. So we're going to fold that down the one diagonal, lift that up, fold it down the other diagonal, lift that up, flip it over, and this part should be, the fold should be down, and on this one it's down, and you'll just sort of squeeze it, squeeze each one, and you'll get this little tent. And that's what we're shooting for on the big one. But I just wanted to show, especially club members, how the whole mechanism works, and it makes it a lot easier to figure out when you're doing all the scoring and everything, because that we will do together. So now we have a piece, now we'll do the real one. So we have a piece of 7 1/4 by 2 3/4 inch, just white cardstock. You need something a little heavy, because if you did paper it wouldn't be able to handle it. So this is 2 3/4. We're scoring it in half, which is 1 3/8. And I would suggest, well, you can use your score tool, but the tendencies to cut it are great unless you really have that down. So what I'm suggesting is you take your bone folder and just score it. Wait, I don't think it's in half. There we go. And score it, yes, right in half. So 1 3/8. Next we will be marking. You can take a pencil, you can use a ruler if you'd like. I like to use my paper cutter. So we're marking it, we're turning it landscape, and we're marking it at 2 1/4 just on the top and on the bottom. And I'm using my rail as a guide, or my, I don't know what that's called. So 2 1/4 here, I'm calling it a rail. 2 1/4 and 2 1/4. You just make little pencil marks. Now we will create the score lines for the diagonals. So the one mark is here and the other mark is here, again putting it in what I'm calling the rail. I know it's not the proper term, but I'm being consistent. So now we just score that down. The track, that's what the word is, track. So we're putting one in that track and that in that track. Sometimes the brain goes. Okay. And we're scoring those. And basically that's all it is to get the mechanism. So now we will fold it in half. Fold it in half lengthwise. And now it's not folding right. Okay. And you want to be precise with this, because if you don't, then you may have issues with the whole mechanism part. So I folded it in half. I folded it then from the one point to the other diagonal, and this should be a straight fold. I mean, when you fold it over, this should be straight, and then we'll fold the other one up this way on the other diagonal. Okay. Give it a little burnish. There. Now we have our mechanism. So we want the left and right sides, the long sides, to be down, and we're going to wait, what happened here? Alright, what happened? I'm pulling it back. Okay, so now they're down, and these are sort of popped up. So I just basically gave it an extra fold. Now we're going to squeeze the sides, and it folds into our little tent, or little house, however you want to call it. We're going to burnish that. Make sure that it's all even. You want to make sure that your tails are even as well. If they're not even, you could get something like this, and that means it's not going to open correctly. And this was an example of not measuring correctly on the sides. These two things are not the same. So that's something, if you get that, you'll know what happened, or hopefully you'll figure it out. Now we'll put it in the card. So we're taking our card base, opening it up. The front will be up on the top. Before we stick that in, we're going to measure 2 3/4 on, we're finding the center of the top and the bottom. And it's 2 3/4 because it's a 5.5 inch piece of cardstock. So I'm measuring it, and I would say go down about an inch maybe from the bottom. So it's 2 3/4, make a little mark, go to the top, same thing, 2 3/4, about an inch from the top. And now we're going to draw a line between the dots that we just made. And I'll show you why in a minute. So you're basically going almost to your designer paper piece. Now we'll take our tent, and we're putting it inside, and we're going to make sure that it butts up against the crease of the card. And the reason why we want to make these little marks here, your little legs, love all these technical terms, these little legs will be right in between your, I don't know if you can see it, right in between your little pencil mark. So we're going to add some Tombow glue, and you can do this part two ways. Well, the gluing part you want to just glue on the top triangle, not against the edge, because it will ooze out. You have two options here. You can flip it over and put it on the bottom, or you can just make sure that it's firmly against the fold. This is straight, and then just bring this down. You might want to kind of hold it in there because it pushes it back. So you'll hold that down and hold it for a moment, and then you'll open it up, and that will be on the top. I like to flip it around and do the same thing. So now this is secure, it's in between. You'll add the adhesive and the triangle, again not on the edges, and then we fold this down as well. And this is the back of the card. So you give it just a moment to take hold. Okay, and now we'll flip it over to the front. When you open it, this is what you'll get. So it just flips open, and this is how the mechanism looks. The next thing we'll do is take our piece of 3 by 8 inch cardstock, and this is scored at 2 inch intervals, so it's 2, 4, 6. We're folding it in the middle in half and then bringing the flaps over. So to add a little bit of extra design here, I'm just stamping a flower, this little flower that comes in that stamp set. And I don't want to get it all over everything here. So I'm using Misty Moonlight. You could use Versamark. You just want sort of a watermark look behind it. and we're going to random stamp. And when I random stamp, it works really well if you turn the paper that you're stamping on like 90 degrees each stamp. So you'll stamp it, turn it, stamp it, turn it, and you pretty much want to go just on the outside edge because your Hugs letters will be covering it otherwise. So it's random on the top, and you can see I just keep turning my piece. Now we're going to do the bottom or top, whichever it ends up to be. Okay, there we go. So now it just gave it a little bit of something. So now we will add our letters. And I have already glued them on. I cut them out in the Misty Moonlight. I punched them out with the postage stamp punch, and I did that in Pale Papaya. And now we'll attach these. We'll just do the hugs. You could do baby cards. You could do, let's see, what's another one that I've seen? Baby, love, just all kinds of words. You could do a 3-letter word and put an exclamation point at the end. But and the playful alphabet is also a good set to use with this that we have available now. So we're just adhering these in, and you just center it in each little quadrant here. There should be 4 of them. And if you want to line them up perfectly, you can put a piece of paper or something underneath this so that you're getting it straight. That's helpful sometimes. Or a ruler, whatever you'd like to do. Whatever works best. I'm typically good at eyeing it up, but there's that time when it gets crooked. Okay. So now we have our hugs on there. Now we'll attach it to the card. So we're going to open up our card and lay it flat. Now if it doesn't lay flat, that's okay. That just means that you didn't get your center tied up against the crease mark. But it's still usable. It'll just like pop up when you're trying to put this piece on. But you still can do it. So what I'm going to do is fold this or lay it on top, and you want about 1/8 of an inch this blue overlapping the white piece, about 1/8 of an inch. And to know that that's what you're doing, if you fold these pieces in, you'll get a good gauge on where you're at. So we're lining it up with the center, our center line, that way it's nice and straight. First one I did of this, when I opened it up, it was like all crooked, so that's why precision is sort of important on this one. Okay, so I have 1/8 of an inch on the top here and 1/8 of an inch on the bottom. And my lines in the center are lining up. We take our Tombow glue, and in the right quadrant, just this top part right here, we're going to put our glue. You want something pretty strong because this is your mechanism. Fold this over and just hold it on for the glue, and then on the left side you put it on the bottom. So it's top right, bottom left, and then we fold this over, hold it a moment, and that's our mechanism. Or that's how we get it to work and pop and twist. So now that it's pretty secure, we'll take the center and just take your finger and kind of pull it up a little bit. Fold the card, and now it will twist as it gets inside. You may want to give it a little push on the S and close your card, and then your card is complete. Now if it doesn't quite close, if it like catches, then just do this a couple times and eventually it will close nice and easily. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this, and it's a nice card to give to that special person when they just need a hug. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.